Now, Matt Gaetz, Congressman Matt Gaetz, is really at the forefront of this topic. And you can go to the media section of his website. And in the media section of his website, there are a number of articles, a number of discussions as to what's happening with Trump, the attempts on his life, a lot of things that I can't really discuss, in depth at this very second. But if you go there, he has other congressmen talking about it. He's in the news, and this is a U.S. congressman. It really doesn't matter if Democrats don't like him. It's a U.S. congressman at the forefront of finding out why President Trump's life is always at risk. Why have there been 2 attempts on Trump's life? He's doing what Matt Gaetz is doing what the New York Times and Washington Post, The Atlantic, MSNBC, CNN, Vanity Fair, Esquire, what all of these should be doing after a second attempt on a former president and future president. And what they would be doing, all of these media companies, all of these journalists, Democratic Congress people would be 24/7 trying to find out if Trump was involved, if, God forbid, there was the reverse, if the tables were turned. And God forbid the tables were turned and they experienced what Trump has experienced. But anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. We're going to get to some analysis on how very likely there is an informant or informants within Trump's security apparatus or team or campaign. Let's continue. He probably almost certainly already has a good foothold or a good idea of who is relaying information and how it's taking place. There's a reason that these people know, these madmen, these very unstable, sinister, nefarious, evil individuals, there's a reason that they know where he is to try to take his life. And how they gather that information is a big, big issue. Hit subscribe to this channel right now.
2 months, 2 assassination attempts, and dozens of outstanding questions. Well, it seems that all we've gotten at this point from the government is stonewalling. And the longer they do that, and I said this after July 13th, the more Americans wonder, what is really going on? So the government's lack of transparency is creating a major credibility crisis for the Secret Service and the FBI. Are you reassured by this?
I want the American people to know that the men and women of the FBI are working tirelessly to get to the bottom of what happened. Our work is very much ongoing, and we're just a few days into the investigation, so we're limited in what we can say. We're working around the clock to investigate this.
Well, it's going to take a little more than that to assuage fears in this case. And we're still waiting for answers about the first time Trump was almost killed. And just like things didn't seem to add up about Thomas Crooks, who he was personally, his motivations, we're still looking for that, let alone the incompetence on the ground in Butler. Well, in this situation, the same questions are lingering. The same could be said of the way they're trying to spin this Ryan Ruth. Now, this guy had a long criminal past dating back decades. He spent much of his life in North Carolina before moving to Hawaii in 2017, where he built tiny homes for homeless people. Now, somehow he eventually made his way to Ukraine, where all on his own, I guess he was willing to fight and die for all the people of Ukraine, and was trying to recruit people to fight in Ukraine, had a website account, where he then threatened foreign leaders to another person, assassination, chitter, foreign fighters for the war, but just did that all on his own. Then last week, he makes his way all the way from Hawaii.
Do you think this individual, this very sinister, nefarious person right here, you think that he, on the right, not Laura Ingraham, the man who tried to take Trump's life, do you think he prepared that look, that kind of indoctrinated, calm, serene, confident, focused look into the future, or like he's doing something for humanity, that kind of Manson family type look. You think that he practiced that in the mirror, maybe? Because this optics right here, this is not the type of individual who doesn't know that a great many morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats might agree with him, might have wanted him to be successful. Okay, there's a lot of morally superior liberal Democrats who claim to be very moral and wonderful and just, who wanted this man almost certainly to be successful. That should tell you the state of politics on the left, not just in our country, on the left.
To camp out in the bushes of the Trump golf course in West Palm Beach in the middle of the night with a rifle and a scope and a couple of bags. As we told you last night, Ruth was reported to the feds, but appears that nothing came of it. So all of this raises more questions than it gives us any answers. But we are learning one new detail. Fox News has confirmed that Donald Trump now does have the same protection package he did when he was president. It's about time. And he already had it, believe it or not, on Sunday. But a Secret Service source tells us that Trump's security was increased after Butler, and that helped thwart this second assassination attempt. Joining me now, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, member of the Trump Assassination Task Force. Can't believe we have to have a task force on this, but we do. Yeah. He was briefed by the Secret Service late today. Congressman Waltz, thank you for joining us. What can you share with us about this briefing?
Well, just to go back to Butler and the gross incompetence, I mean, it's just jaw-dropping, Laura. Not all of the local law enforcement was at the coordination meetings with the Secret Service. They did not give the law enforcement that was there sufficient guidance on how to secure the AGR building. They just basically, the Secret Service just basically told them, you guys got it, right? Completely insufficient. And while they had a common radio net, they were texting each other. There wasn't a, hey, shooter on the roof, get the president off the stage, all hands on deck. And the command post, when that was delivered, wasn't in the same place as the president. So huge failings and violations of protocol.
The violations of protocol and the failings, there's two explanations. One is the people around Trump, not the men and women of the Secret Service who are, risking their lives on the ground with Trump. God bless them. I'm talking about the bureaucratic the individuals in the bureaucracy and government in around Trump, calling the deciding on the perimeter, for example, deciding on funding, government officials in offices in Washington, D.C. There's two explanations to all of this, people, and obviously there's an informant or numerous ones, but one is that they're completely and utterly inept. The other is that they're not so inept, but they want to make everything so disorganized, and they want to give the allure of incompetence to allow this type of event to take place. That's, I think, the real issue.
My pushback has been, okay, thank you for being forthcoming, Secret Service. Where's the accountability? Who's been fired? And you know what? Retiring and sailing off into the night with full government benefits is not accountability. So on the one hand, the Secret Service is coming to us with their failings and addressing those going forward. The FBI, on the other hand, radio silence. We still know nothing about Crooks' encrypted accounts. We know nothing about how he built the IEDs. We know nothing about how he was radicalized. And the fact that he was so quiet on the internet, I think, is an indicator in and of itself. The same thing's playing out now down in Florida. The Secret Service says, look, we should have had better drone coverage of the entire perimeter. Thank God for the one agent who spotted the rifle, and they're coming back to us with what they're going to fix again, and they have increased resources.
Well,
once again, though, the FBI, radio silence, will let you know when we get done with our investigation. That's unacceptable. We need maximum transparency right now.
See, we already know these government agencies don't like Trump. They're run by people, let's say the middle management at least, who don't like Trump. They don't like Trump. They're just going to, media has zero interest in investigating the reality of what took place. They would demonize all Republicans and Trump supporters if the tables were turned. They cite a report from a government agency, all the chaos and the violence is from the right. That's complete nonsense. Any report that doesn't include billions in property damage in the last year of Trump's first term, billions that entire summer of curfews, arson, cars and buildings destroyed. That was not a conservative. That wasn't from conservative demonstrators. And I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated, the people who peacefully demonstrated. I agree with that, but not the billions in property damage. And then two attempts on Trump's life. And then all the times, you could just, even yard signs on people's homes. Okay. Do you ever see a Trump person jumping over a fence and trying to get a Biden sign? Nobody cares if you're voting for Trump. But it's like this visceral reaction from the morally superior. There have been stories and even lawsuits of people trying to take hats away from others. I mean, the chaos and violence, and they say, well, one fateful day in Virginia in 2017, that had nothing to do with Trump. Trump had literally nothing to do with that day. That day was a chaotic, deadly, terrible day, and they turned it into Trump's rhetoric and words. And their rhetoric and words for 7 years have led to families being torn apart, friends disowning other friends, family members disowning family members, and 2 attempts on Trump's life. So it's not the apoplectic behavior is almost always from the left to the right, not the other way around. If you're voting Trump, you have zero interest in what anyone else is doing. If you're voting Harris, the indoctrination is such that you probably want to disown anyone in your inner circle who votes Trump.
For the American people.
Now, Congressman, President Trump was really cool, calm, and collected today when he was asked about this. And he's like, look, they have beefed up my protection. But the question stands, does it not, sir, that the former president went to that golf course and there was a man somehow all on his own, got from Hawaii in the middle of the night, gets into those bushes, is perched there. There's no infrared imaging done of that perimeter. I'm still not understanding what happened with the drone. It was flown, but it wasn't flown in the right area. They didn't pick him up, or they didn't do it soon enough. I mean, what does it take for the Secret Service to actually answer simple questions, be transparent, and do so expeditiously? Not with this big runaround of, I'll get back to you in 90 days or 6 months or whatever the heck it is.
So here's the problem. The service is being forthcoming about what they failed on the actual details, but then they're referring us to the FBI in terms of any information about the shooters or their background or where they got the weapons or how they got there, and that's completely unacceptable. We need to have both the FBI and the Secret Service in every single briefing, so they can't do this.
You have sitting senators who are, well, before a lot of this stuff started going down, were pretty they're conservative, but they're pretty moderate guys, who are saying they don't believe the FBI. They're not trusting this narrative that these are just lone wolves who somehow have no real detailed social media that would indicate a motive.
Right.
In this case, this guy was recruiting people from Afghanistan to fight in Ukraine, and then he was homeless, and he was in the New York Times, and he's interviewed by media people, and then the FBI kind of knew about him but didn't follow it up. I mean, this just it stinks to high heaven to most people, and I can understand why.
It could also, ladies and gentlemen, be an attempt to case, so to speak, to case the golf course, or to kind of check the security, to see how Trump's current security team or apparatus reacts to what this madman did. Okay, then the third attempt, God forbid, or the fourth, God forbid, the next person will learn from all the security failures. So it could be an attempt to see how, not just getting Trump, but an attempt to see how many ways in the future some evil, sinister, nefarious individual could try and take Trump's life. So a lot of these things, like you saw this during the lead up to September 11th, there were numerous other instances leading up to that.
You layer on top of that these threats from Iran, ongoing plots from Iran, two that have been intercepted. And what have you heard from Biden and Harris when we have an enemy of the United States trying to kill a former president and leading political candidate? You've heard nothing, much less anything in terms of consequences to Iran or any type of retribution. And so that's the piece. I'm also on the Intelligence Committee. That's the piece I'm zeroing in on, is what foreign aspect, if any, is coming into play here, because these are just too many coincidences.
Well, Congressman, I'd laugh if it weren't so sad and scary for our country, not just this election and President Trump's life, but for the country. The fact that we're still mulling over motives. Well, it's not clear what Thomas Crooks's motives were. Isn't it ipso facto you're trying to shoot the president of the United States? You know, your motives aren't good. You were trying to do him harm.
Do you think they would question motives if the tables were turned? God forbid. And I'm not calling for that. I think that political violence, like billions in property damage, attempts on Trump's life, all of these things are the worst thing that could ever happen to the country. They're a way of silencing and subjugating a populace. It's not, there is no answer other than voting. That's it. And adopting the wonderful Democratic Party strategies that help them win, which is, of course, only fair and above board strategies.
I guess you had the situation.
But they're really quick. They're really quick to say he acted alone. Right out the gate, he acted alone. But yet we know nothing about him. And again, when we're done taking our time with the investigation, we'll let you know. That's not acceptable. You tell the American people what you know when you know it. The service has been better, but the FBI has completely gone dark. And that's not acceptable given these attacks, given the foreign threats, and given that we're 47 days out from an election. It's just totally unacceptable. If we've got to subpoena Wray, I say we do it. But they need to come clean with what is behind all of this.
Yeah, well, we needed, in my view, I mean, you guys are doing the best you can, but we needed like a Watergate style, inquiry as to how this went down. And now it's happened twice. Guy didn't get a shot off, but he got into position. And for that U.S. Secret Service acting director, Congressman, to say, oh, well, he didn't have him in his the line of sight, like that's some, high-fiving each other that we were effective. Yeah. How long would it have taken him to get into the line of sight? Were it not for that one agent who saw the barrel of that gun?
That's right. Then, and by the way, the agent was within 10 feet of him. He was incredibly close. And had he been taken out and the president came, he would have been just as close. It's literally a chip shot. My 2-year-old could make that shot.
Yeah, well, again, it's more luck than anything else. And we can't rely on luck here. We have someone's life at stake.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot going on. It's very interesting how media don't care how Democrats don't care, and you kind of see the true nature of left-leaning politics. They feign this indignation all the time, this outrage. They claim to be morally superior and the vanguards of civility and decency and honor. And two attempts on Trump's life, not a word of real condemnation here and there, but no outrage, no nothing.
The Secret Service giving an update right now on the first assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, admitting there was complacency on the part of some that led to a breach of security protocols. There were communications gaps and a lack of diligence ahead of that July 13th shooting. The Secret Service did not give clear guidance or direction to local law enforcement. The apparent second Trump assassination attempt in Florida shows that there was a heightened threat environment, and the agency needs additional personnel, technical assets, and equipment for long-term purposes and also immediately. Wow, for reaction to all of this, let's bring in Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. It is always great to have you on the program. And today, as we're getting these headlines and finding out about some of those failures today, the House passed a bill to ensure that candidates running for president will get the same protection that the sitting president is getting. It passed 405-0. 26 members were absent. Clearly, you guys are working on this, but when I read these headlines, I've got to shake my head.
Yeah, no, the bill was good. I mean, and it's good to see something with bipartisan support where we think, if you're running for president of the United States, you need the same kind of protection that the president of the United States has. So good piece of legislation. President Trump commended the Secret Service for their work last Sunday in the terrible situation down there in Miami and in Florida, or Palm Beach, I should say. So that's all good. And then the task force is working on this as well. But I will tell you one thing that concerns me particularly about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania 2 months ago is after the assassination attempt on President Trump, the Secret Service wasn't square with us, and neither was Secretary Mayorkas. Because remember, they told us 24 hours after that attack, they said it's absolutely false that we in any way deny President Trump's security detail the resources they asked for. And then 5 days later, they said, well, there were occasions where they asked for things that we didn't give to them. Right. So it couldn't be both. So the fact that they lied to us, I think is problematic too, and something that we need to get to the bottom of on this task force that's been put together by the Speaker.
Well, and that brings up the issue, Congressman, of consequences, accountability. I'm hearing words now like complacency and lack of diligence. That sounds like apathy. What happens? What are the consequences of complacency with the former president of the United States and his life on the line? Right now, all I've heard about is people getting desk jobs. That can't be it.
No, that can't be it when you're talking about the fact that former President Trump, the Republican nominee, almost lost his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. I mean, for goodness sake, let's wait and see what the task force comes up with, see what the facts they unveil, the information in their report that they're supposed to get to the Congress, get to the country by mid-December. So let's see what they uncover. What I do know is how they started. The day after, the spokesperson for the Secret Service said it's absolutely false that we didn't give them what they asked for. Secretary Mayorkas said the exact same thing. And those two statements within 48 hours after an attempt on the president's life, President Trump's life, where someone else, Corey Comprador, lost his life, where two other Americans were injured, those statements were false.
So you have a man who lost his life that day. And still, there are people on the left, Democrats, media, using the word staged. Okay? There's a pundit who lost, was sued for $1 trillion for espousing the same type of, crazy rhetoric. Okay? So they're doing the same things. Democrats are doing the same things as people that they absolutely despise, but it's them doing it, so it's okay. And when it's unbelievable how what is it that they like so much? High inflation, high interest rates, wars that we're seeing all over now. It was like the second that Biden, won, because he was so eloquent, and that's why they kept him for 24. The second Democrats took control, we all knew. I was saying we all knew that there would be endless military conflict, and there is. And people don't what is it about Trump? What don't you like about Trump if you're a, never Trump Republican, or especially if you're a Democrat, you can't stand Trump? What is it? His personality? He's a great president. Who cares? You think Harris or Biden have great personalities? The media obsessed over Trump, ignored all his accomplishments, and by using the standard by which you judge a president, Trump was a great president. Without a shadow of a doubt, great economy, low interest rates, low inflation, record low unemployment, record highs in household median income that we have not seen since 2019. So what is it about these people trying to take his life? Do they love inflation? I don't get it. The same Democrats are like, I missed. You like inflation? You would just so you keep control of the executive branch, you want high inflation, high interest rates. That's worth not having Trump, because Trump's going to get the economy back on track. He'll secure the border. He'll end all of these endless military conflicts. But again, a lot of Democrats don't care. They don't care about foreign policy. And that's not a slight or a diss, or they just don't. It's about Roe v. Wade, and that's it.
They lied to we the people, the very people they're supposed to serve. So they didn't get off on a good start. Let's see how this unfolds. Let's see what the task force does. But the good news is President Trump, by the grace of the good Lord, wasn't hurt in either attempt. And we passed this legislation today that will give enhanced protection to the president.
Congressman, I want to follow on that, because I think a lot of people are wondering why President Trump, former President Trump, wasn't given immediate more protection as if he were a sitting president immediately after July 13. Why did it take so long?
Great question. We need to get the answer to that. More importantly, the American people need to know the answer to that. I mean, he was former president. I think he's going to be our next president. Everyone knew he was the nominee. He's out campaigning in a critical state, of course. Why not? And then you couple it with all the things that have been said about him, all the attacks, all the ridiculous things that the left has said about President Trump. In that environment, you would have thought there would have been the protection that was needed, or at least what his detail asked for, which they were turned down. So that, I think, again, that should be a key focus of the task force, not to mention what happened on the ground in Butler, what happened on the ground in Palm Beach, what things that could have been done different with the security, securing the rooftops of the buildings in Butler, and all those questions there. But just the fact that it wasn't where it needed to be, and his detail asked for it, and he wasn't given that, I think is a big question.
Congressman, illegal immigration continues.
On this, we're going to bring.
So, as I said in the beginning of the live stream, Congressman Matt Gaetz on his website has a whole lot of information on the media section. I believe it's the media section. Also, media. On the fact that there is not only an informant, possibly numerous informants, and almost certainly that Trump, his team, have either found out where this information, who's providing this information to very, very dangerous individuals, or how this information is getting out there. So that Matt Gaetz is at the forefront of this. And honestly, if you're a wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat, you don't like Matt Gaetz, God forbid there isn't two attempts, and God forbid there, I would never want that. But if you had two attempts on a Democratic, on somebody on the other side, God forbid, there would be hysteria beyond belief. Every Democrat would be on the case. Here you have Matt Gaetz and others. Congressman Eli Crane is also one of the most important people, uncovering all this information. But let's continue.
bring in former Secret Service agent Frank Loveridge. Frank, so glad you could be here. So we'll start here. Of the missteps, we're talking about miscommunication, logistical issues, planning problems, these items that have been uncovered. What surprises you most? What concerns you most?
Laura, thank you for having me on. The first thing that comes to mind after reading the mission assurance investigation, the executive summary they put out yesterday, was the police meeting. As you know, the Secret Service cannot protect the president or any of the protectees without the support of local and state assets. To have a police meeting in which some of the local law enforcement requested mutual assistance from other departments, and they were not present at that police meeting. I mean, that included the snipers, the counter snipers that were supposed to be on the AJR building. They got no direction. We didn't determine what their rules of engagement were. Did they have a green light? Or did they have to ask permission to shoot? Did they know what our critical plans were if we had an incident at the site? None of that protective methodology was coordinated. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but let's talk about communications. You can't have two separate command posts. And when you have two separate command posts, you've got information going into a command post without representatives from the Secret Service to put that over our encrypted network. So we're not understanding what's going on, where the threats are at. You can't have that. And that information that they thought was being passed to our Secret Service detail, local assets thought it was coming over our radio. It wasn't. And we never moved the president off the X. So he was out there in harm's way. And I'll just say one thing about the Secret Service. What makes us the premier law enforcement and protective agency in the world, and I've worked with the Russians, I've worked with the Shin Bet over in Israel, I've worked with them all over the world. And what makes us the best is our advance work. And we failed that day. Our site design was terrible. We had all kinds of issues with site alignment and with individuals that could walk up to a fence line and see the president on stage. That should have been addressed by a site agent, reviewed by a lead advance agent, and then a supervisor from the field office reviews it, and it finally gets reviewed by the Trump detail supervisor. And if that happened, I just don't understand how they missed all of that.
Well, those are definitely questions that are being looked at over and over and over again, as they should be. Hopefully they'll get some answers, but better than that, hopefully they'll get some resolution. Let me move here, Frank. As you well know, yesterday, Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe said this investigation is entering its accountability phase. No specifics were provided other than no one has been asked to resign. Can you provide insight into the accountability phase? Do you have anything at all?
So after serving on the president's detail twice as a supervisor, I was assigned to inspection division. So I wrote those mission assurance inquiries, and I was involved right after an incident in 2012 in which we gained a lot of bad publicity. We established a table of penalties in which we have established, and they are pretty fierce. But then having a table of penalties and actually enforcing it is two different things. So we need to move forward, unfortunately, and hold people accountable for what happened. And that should happen shortly. I believe it will.
Okay. Well, you also know yesterday the House unanimously passed H.R. Bill 9106. That's the Enhanced Presidential Security Act of 2024. Its purpose is to direct the director of the United States Secret Service to apply the same standards for determining the number of agents required to protect presidents, vice presidents, and major presidential and vice presidential candidates, and for other purposes, it says. Now, also yesterday, Frank, Acting Director Rowe said Mr. Trump has been receiving the highest levels of Secret Service protection, and he added that they have finite resources. You know this, and they're stretching.
So the men and women of the Secret Service around Trump, when they're surrounding Trump, well, God bless them, that, they're risking their lives. They could be, hurt, injured, maimed, paralyzed. Okay. The problem is the people sitting in desks, the bureaucrats, the people in Washington, media also, but that's another story. But the problem is the high ups. That's why the head of the Secret Service resigned. Thank God. They should have been asked. All these people in Washington who are a part of the security apparatus protecting Trump, quote unquote, protecting Trump, should be asked, do you want harm to come to this man? And then, of course, they'd, oh my God, how dare you? It's like, yeah, you are either inept or you're trying to open an avenue or open the window or an avenue or allow something to happen, and then just fall back on, oh, incompetence and, oh my goodness, we failed, and we made a mistake. It's like, are you deliberately pretending to be so incompetent that you want somebody, that you're allowing some insane person to take a former and future president's life? Is that the game plan here? Because everyone sees it. So you can't be that stupid if you are part of the entire security apparatus, not the men and women on the ground. But you can't be that incompetent. So then it has to be some kind of deliberate plot or plan, almost certainly, to allow these types of things to take place and then fall back on incompetence.
Good to see you, Congressman. Let's just pick up on that report and connect it to what happened last Sunday with the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the second assassination attempt. It does appear that there were attempts by Iran to assassinate a number of U.S. officials, including Donald Trump, particularly for the Soleimani killing when he was president. Have you dug up anything or heard anything from either the Secret Service or the CIA or the FBI making those Iranian connections with the assassination attempt?
Well, they know for a fact that Iran, there was credible threats from the Iranian state to kill President Trump and other leaders, as you just said, David. And that's why President Trump needs and deserves and requires really the maximum protection akin to what a sitting president gets. He needs that kind of level of Secret Service halo, if you will. And they haven't provided that for him yet. You saw that they didn't even check with dogs. They could have checked the perimeter of the golf course. They did not do that. And this is a credible nation state threat. And President Trump is going to continue. He'll have that for the rest of his life. And the Secret Service has fallen down on the job. Now, they do all acknowledge, all of those agencies you just mentioned, that it was a highly credible threat. And they yet didn't react the way they should.
Well, and the big question about this guy, the suspect here, Routh, where did he get his money? He was traveling all over the place. He was only making $3,000 a month. He got weapons and all his sophistication. He got information. Where did he get the information? Donald Trump's golf game was not on the schedule, and yet he knew it was there. He camped out the night before. I mean, it does appear that somebody was feeding this guy with both money and information.
It just boggles the mind to think, because we had a briefing with the Secret Service yesterday on the task force, and we asked them, I personally asked him, when did you know President Trump was going to golf at that course? And he said the night before. So they knew. And then how did this guy know? Because he would, as you said, he was staked out there, David, for 12 hours. He had snacks, he had body armor, he had a weapon. And you would, if you had a counter surveillance team with President Trump, which they need to give him the same protection that Joe Biden gets. Because he was a sitting president, he's the leading candidate to be the next president, and he's got these nation state threats, but they didn't do it. So they have to do it now.
Yeah, Congressman, before we have another technical glitch, very quickly, Bernie Sanders now reacting to this apparent Israeli attack on Hezbollah. A lot of people would frankly think it was good news that they were successful at
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to Matt Gaetz's U.S. Congressman's website, Democrats often point to the U.S. government as a reason to believe the absurd nonsense that Trump was a Kremlin operative. They say, well, the government was questioning it. So, yeah, we have now a government official in Congress, a congressman, sitting congressman, in government now, bringing up the subject of potential informants, potential teams of people who are trying to hurt Trump, and so that's right there. You can look that up, and the analysis I think provided backs up a lot of what Matt Gaetz is talking about. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow. Starting mid-October, I'll be doing at least 3 live streams a day going into November. And what can I tell you, ladies and gentlemen? And God bless you. Stay safe. Do not, and I tell my audience, do not debate politics. If there's one thing that one piece of advice, and Paul and everyone here, thank you. Paul Bartlett, thank you so very much. Angie, thank you. To my super chat, thank you. There's one piece of advice I can give. Do not talk about politics with anyone who disagrees with you for the next 3, 4, 5 months, because it's just going to be so intense in terms of the rivalry, the tribalism, and it's unhealthy. But when you have all of media losing power, media is losing influence. Democrats are losing political power and influence. Trump is coming back, and there's really nothing they can do to stop him. They try to imprison him. There have been attempts on his life. They can't stop the man. They can't stop the man. Anyway, hit subscribe. God bless you all. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody.